Now on 7 News at 7, changes to local elections, the pandemic affecting voters, what it means for the statewide June primary.
A popular store will now require masks for customers come Monday. We'll tell you what you need to know about the new rule.
A group of Gaffney High School students protesting about their own graduation, learn what options they've been given and what they'd like to see coming up.
And only on 7, what the fall could look like for students. We have an exclusive interview with the State Superintendent of Education.
Live and local for Carolina's family. This is 7 News at 7.
Malachi, thank you. And now to the coronavirus crisis. South Carolina's Governor Henry McMaster is reviewing ways to get the state's economy back up and running.
The governor did get some feedback from professionals at the latest Accelerate South Carolina meeting. 7 News reporter Melanie Palmer explains.
There's a handful of options being looked at to get restaurants back open that could include only allowing outdoor seating or limiting the number of people inside at one time. But the exact date of when that could be happening is still up in the air. May 4th, May 11th, and May 18th, those are all days that are being reviewed to have restaurants back open. Officials with the Accelerate Task Force say they need time to train employees on new guidelines, which could be having their temperatures read before coming in, and also giving restaurant owners time to fully sanitize their space.
Training is going to be the key for all of us. We have got to really train when we get back open, because it's going to be a new world out there. And, you know, our customers trusted us before, they'll trust us again.
Now, a lot of what is being talked about is how these guidelines will be enforced, and what that comes down to is self-policing. That essentially means you're doing what you're supposed to do with no fines or punishments. And then, of course, there's the other issue of small business owners, like restaurant owners, getting their hands on needed PPE materials like hands and masks. That's something the South Carolina governor says he hopes production will increase in the near future, and he says he's interested in working with large companies to coordinate a way to make more of these masks available. In Columbia, Melanie Palmer, 7 News.
And now let's look at the numbers. We've been doing this on a sort of day-by-day basis over a 7-day period, just trying to get a sense of where the numbers are coming in over a 1-week time. Normally, they have stayed relatively flat in the Carolinas. Georgia, much higher numbers. We'll start with South Carolina here. Today, we got the report from DHEC that the state in the last 24 hours had identified 130 new cases of COVID-19. That's about the same as the past 2 days. So we do have a consistent number here after what was a very large spike over the weekend. Watching for those trends, but still well over 100 cases a day. And the other thing to keep an eye on in South Carolina, the number of people who have been reported dead from COVID-19 in each 24-hour period has gone up quite a bit as of late. 15 people yesterday. That was the highest in a single day in South Carolina. 11 reported today. Let's take a look at North Carolina, another state that's sort of struggling with that question of when and how much to reopen, as Melanie Palmer was just reporting about in South Carolina. Here are the numbers from out of Raleigh today. Another 380 cases in North Carolina. North Carolina reporting another 12 people had died in that period. And we just got an update from the state of Georgia. Georgia reports these numbers 2 times a day. So we have the first half of that number when we come to you at 5 o'clock. Now we have the complete day total here, and you'll see it is about the highest in the entire week. In fact, it is the second highest in the week. We had 781 a week ago, 779 today, but over 700 on a relatively consistent basis in the state of Georgia. And there, too, we're noticing an uptick in the number of people pronounced dead from this pandemic. Look at this. 78 people 2 days ago on Monday, 42 people on Tuesday, and today the state says another 60 people in Georgia have died from this pandemic.
And now to the pandemic having a major impact on state and local elections. While some are postponed, other elections are still on, and the polls will be open. 7 News reporter Kimberly Brown has our story.
COVID-19 has changed a lot, including election schedules, but the June 9th primary, well, that is still a go.
I do get to work.
For Hannah Witt, election news and the upcoming election have taken a back seat to the new normal because of COVID-19.
My time's been really preoccupied with having to be a stay-at-home mom during the week, a full-time student, and also teaching.
Voter turnout on June 9th is expected to be low.
If we get 15% to 20%, I think it will be a great turnout.
Governor McMaster postponed elections in April and May, which affected 4 races in Spartanburg County. Those elections have yet to be rescheduled, but voters can still cast their ballots now.
What we have here, folks can still come in and vote in person absentee for those if they like. These ballot marking devices are available.
Poll workers will be equipped with masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, wipes, and possibly sneeze shields. They'll also encourage voters to practice social distancing. Election officials cannot require voters to wear masks. However, they encourage them to do so.
No, I am not concerned, and I figure whoever's running that thing will do the right thing and have everything cleaned up like they should.
Any change in the election process will have to come from and be approved by the General Assembly.
You need to be aware of options available to you should you want to participate in exercising your right to vote and help choose the leadership of the state, the federal government, or the local issues.
Before you head to the polls, it's important to find out if your election precinct has changed. Reporting from Spartanburg County, Kimberly Brown, 7 News.
In-person absentee voting begins on May the 11th. If a runoff is necessary, it would take place on June 23rd. Also tonight, parents and teachers are focused on 2 things right now: getting through the school year and wondering, will the kids go back to regular school in the fall? I spoke to State Superintendent of Education, Molly Spearman, who says all options are on the table, including some kind of a split schedule.
Well, I think absolutely there will be instruction. The big maybe is it going to be face-to-face? It probably will not be school just like we have known in the past, with 75 or so children riding the school bus to a seat and classrooms with 24 children in a classroom. Plan A, start regular, as close to normal as possible. Plan B, some type of divided schedule where maybe half the class would come for half the day, the other half are on different days. And then finally, what if we have to do it virtually? So
the South Carolina Education Task Force is going to meet tomorrow at 10 in the morning for their first meeting as they begin to work through all of these topics. You can watch that live on WSPA.com. And if you want to watch the entire interview with the State Superintendent of Education, head to the 7 News Facebook page.
New information on a story we first brought you on 7 News. Gilead Science says its experimental drug remdesivir is proving effective against the coronavirus. The company says a government study tested the drug against normal care in 800 patients worldwide. We're told the main result is how long it takes patients to recover, but more information is expected to be released very soon. New tonight, BMW's announced it'll resume production at its Spartanburg plant May 4th. In a statement, they say there have been a variety of deep cleanings and other safety measures there. There will also be new guidelines and procedures on how to help mitigate the spread of the virus. Much more information about this BMW announcement over at WSPA.com. Now, all the businesses around South Carolina are trying to find ways to reopen, but how can they legally enforce safety guidelines that go beyond state requirements? 7 News' Ayla Ferrone breaks that down.
Come Monday, Costco will require customers to wear face masks in order to shop inside. So we checked in with legal experts about what's behind all of this. Many businesses and stores that have been allowed to open are enforcing social distancing guidelines.
They're not letting just massive amounts of people in, so they're definitely being careful about that.
But one big box store is taking it a step further. Starting Monday, you'll be required to wear a mask to shop at Costco.
If they're going to start to reopen the stores and let you go out and do what you have to do, at least be responsible about it.
We caught up with Costco customer Nicole Albert in the parking lot, who says she'd wear a mask even if it wasn't required.
There's really no way to know when it's safe and when it's not, and I'm more of a better safe than sorry kind of person.
But not everyone thinks that way, so we found out, does a business like Costco have the right to mandate masks?
Wearing a mask going into a store should be mandatory across the country.
According to local attorney John Reckenbile, they can.
You have the right to refuse service of an individual that you deem a health or safety risk to your business.
He says any business is in the right to require something like this, but does suggest having signage so your customers know the rules.
You must enforce it equally across the board. Don't make any exceptions.
He says South Carolina is in a better place than some states like New York.
How we would feel right now with thousands upon thousands and thousands of people dying.
Saying that since the governor has deemed it safe enough to open some businesses, people who need to go out should do their part to stay safe.
We have it made. We're lucky here. And so why would we run the risk? These are very simple things to do.
Albert agrees and says although some may worry about their personal rights, we're all in this together.
It's not your right to infect someone else when you maybe unknowingly have it, you're carrying it. And I don't think it's unreasonable to ask people to take care of other people.
And although it's not required everywhere to wear a face mask out in public, the CDC does recommend that you do so. I'm reporting in Greenville, Ayla Ferrone, 7 News.
Still ahead on 7 News, we've got concern about the president's executive order requiring meat processing plants to stay open despite reports of disease outbreaks.
And in the next half hour, high school seniors in the upstate protesting about graduation options given to them by their district.
The president signed an executive order invoking the Defense Production Act, forcing meat processors to remain open. But our Washington correspondent Alexandra Limon reports the union representing the workers has serious concerns.
The COVID-19 outbreak closed meat processing plants around the country. Now an executive order from President Trump is forcing plants to stay open and preventing more widespread closures.
There was a bottleneck caused by this whole pandemic.
The order declares the facilities essential infrastructure, something Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota says will ensure the food supply chain remains stable. Rounds says closed processing plants mean livestock goes to waste.
That will be past the point where they can be harvested at the right time and will probably have to be euthanized.
The executive order also protects companies from lawsuits if employees get sick.
The big companies that you've been reading about, they are so thrilled, they're so happy, they're all gung-ho, and we solved their problems.
But the union representing the plant workers says their problems are not solved, and they're concerned about the shortages of personal protective equipment.
What we need to have now is the proper PPE layered on top of layers of PPE to properly do this job safely. We have to have testing. They didn't mention anything about how they were going to start testing.
The United Food and Commercial Workers Union says 21 meatpacking employees have died from coronavirus and more than 5,000 are sick. UFCW adds that if workers aren't healthy, the food supply chain will be impacted anyway. In Washington, Alexandra Limon, 7 News.
And coming up on 7 News, NASA researchers are joining the fight against the coronavirus in a unique way. We'll take a closer look. Researchers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory are joining the fight against the coronavirus. There's a team of over 100 people working remotely. They use their technical skills to develop a new type of ventilator from scratch in just 37 days. The prototype is made specifically for COVID-19 patients, and it delivers more oxygen at a higher pressure. Testing has so far proven that this project is a success. NASA is now seeking emergency FDA approval for the ventilator. The race to find solutions during this pandemic has led to a new age of innovation.
That includes products meant to help us keep us safe from things like touching our faces or door handles. Here's Charlie Daggett reporting.
People touch their faces all the time. People touch their face 23 times per hour. You know, it's an unconscious behavior that just happens.
Stopping it from just happening is what Seattle-based designer Justin Ith had in mind with his vibrating bracelet, reducing the risk of the coronavirus entering the body through vulnerable points.
So you basically calibrate, this is when I touch my eye, this is when I touch my nose, this is when I touch my mouth. And so when you do that in the future, it'll then vibrate.
The global pandemic and the challenges of a post-lockdown world have already inspired a slew of ideas, like dividing screens in restaurants, plexiglass cubicles for the beach, and mobile barriers on car assembly lines.
In the world we now live in, every surface is a potential health hazard, especially door handles. One British inventor came up with this, and he's called it the hygiene hook. Pretty simple concept, really. Works like this. And like this.
Inventor Steve Brooks has already donated hundreds to hospital workers.
Are we seeing a new age of innovation now?
Yes.
World War II saw an explosion of inventions and innovations.
Hitler's last terror weapon,
like long-range guided missiles, which helped launch the era of space exploration.
And we have liftoff.
The jet engine, which revolutionized commercial aviation. But that period also introduced the modern ballpoint pen and superglue, everyday objects you'd find in your home today. And home is exactly where Justin Ith's idea started.
He created it because, for personal reasons, my father is in his late 60s, and he has an autoimmune disease that makes him immunocompromised. We wanted to jump to action and protect people like my dad.
Sometimes complicated situations call for simple solutions. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, London.
And coming up on 7 News, an upstate Chamber of Commerce is helping business owners and other professionals network while they stay socially distant. We'll show you how that works.
Malachi, thanks. Let's go back to covering the coronavirus crisis. A group of Gaffney High School seniors gathered outside their school district office today.
You know, these students were protesting the options the district has given them for graduation. 7 News reporter Scotty Kay was there.
The football stadium behind me is where graduation for Gaffney High School students usually occurs, but because of the coronavirus, graduation may not look the same this year, and some seniors aren't happy about the proposed alternatives.
When I say pride, you say tradition. Pride. Tradition!
Pride and tradition, a Gaffney High School motto.
Graduation has always been a dream, and I know for many others, this is the only graduation that they are going to get.
Graduation, one of high school's greatest traditions. Gaffney High seniors and their families take great pride in celebrating the big milestone at the reservation. But that pride and tradition is now in jeopardy as the Indians face their newest rival, COVID-19.
Let's go, Gaffney! Let's go!
Gaffney High School's principal posted a video on Facebook saying there'd be a survey for seniors to choose between 2 graduation options. Some of those seniors didn't like the proposals and decided to protest. The first option would allow students to have their ceremony on the football field as usual, but with students only. No family would be allowed to attend.
It'll be our first one to graduate, and this is something we've really looked forward to. Been waiting for it my whole life, well, since he's been born anyway, his whole life.
The second option would be to have several small ceremonies inside the school's auditorium. With that option, each student would be allowed 4 guests. Students say they feel the 2 proposals force them to choose between family or friends, and they don't want to make that decision.
Look at the reservation. You can't space out like a handful of family members in that gigantic stadium. You can utilize the away side as well as the home side during graduations to make sure that they keep that social distance.
After the protest, both Gaffney High's principal and the superintendent addressed the students.
Fortunately, Cherokee County, we've had limited cases, but we don't want to be the cause of a spread of anything.
They told them they are open to suggestions.
I know this is very important to you. I know it is. And we're going to do the very best we can within the guidelines that the state provides us.
Seniors say they just want their voices heard.
As long as we get to walk across the field and my family can see me walk across the field, because it's supposed to be a magical moment.
I do want my classmates and my family together on that day. It's supposed to be one of the greatest days of our lives.
The current survey for seniors will be open until 5 o'clock Thursday night. The results of that survey will be shared on Friday, and the principal says another survey will then open up. In Gaffney, Scotty Kay, 7 News.
One of the most common suggestions made by students and parents was to push graduation back altogether until the coronavirus pandemic dies down.
The CDC is now advising the same social distancing guidelines for pets as humans, advising pet owners to keep their cats indoors, walk dogs on a leash, stay 6 feet away from other people, and don't let your pets interact with other people or animals outside the home. Doctors say if someone in your house has the virus, there are precautions you can take to protect your pet.
Limiting contact with them, refraining from kissing them or allowing them to lick you or lick your face, as well as avoiding sharing food. And then, of course, hand hygiene is the most important thing.
Doctors say if you're sick, ask a healthy family member in the house to care for the pet. Right now, there's no evidence that COVID-19 can be transmitted from pets to humans.
2 brothers in London are working to bring test kits to your doorstep. Harry and Ralph Lamble originally invented at-home testing kits for the flu, but they quickly have adapted this to test for COVID-19. Currently, coronavirus tests require large machines and a lab, but the brothers have simplified the process. They say it's about as easy as a home pregnancy test with results in about 10 minutes.
So it could be used in the workplace to screen employees to allow them to know they can safely go back to work, or even one day it could go out to mass consumer use.
The brothers hope to get FDA approval by the summer so they can start manufacturing tests in the United States.
The Greenville Chamber is continuing to facilitate business networking, but now they're holding events online to maintain social distancing. Earlier today, entrepreneurs met with other members of the business community trying to learn about doing business in the Greenville area. A networking event structured so you could bring your 30-second elevator pitch. If you missed it today, by the way, there's another one Thursday, May 7th. They're doing it from 8 to 9. Many South Carolina breweries are at risk of closing this year because of these current restaurant restrictions. Let's go to our Georgia Reed Godfrey with a look at those numbers.
Restaurants aren't the only ones feeling the impact of the takeout and delivery only restrictions currently in place at South Carolina restaurants. Breweries in the state are also taking a hit. There are 92 breweries in the state responsible for generating close to $800 million for South Carolina each year. Many of them depending on partnerships with local restaurants and bars. But with Governor Henry McMaster's executive order to restrict dine-in services still in place, breweries in the state are suffering. According to a survey by the South Carolina Brewers Guild, there has been an 80% decrease in business, and almost 40% of the state's breweries have stopped production.
They need to be an on-premise operation in order to be really profitable. That's where most people make the bulk of their money. And so right now, because people can't, visit the tap room unless it's to take beer away to go home, just the revenue is not there.
According to a survey by the South Carolina Brewers Guild, 80% of the state's breweries say if these restrictions stay in place for another 3 months, they could have to close their business. In Columbia, Georgia Reed Godfrey, 7 News.
The Brewers Guild hopes lawmakers will relax restrictions on home deliveries so some of these breweries can try and stay afloat and still follow those stay-at-home orders.
Total Ministries just wrapped up another food giveaway in Spartanburg. The giveaway ran from 9 until 11 this morning, and as you can see, a lot of folks showed up. The cars were full of folks getting those groceries. Organizers say now they need more donations to help families.
We need food, every kind of foods you can think of. We do have plenty of green beans and corn right now, so anything but that would be great. And we also need monetary donations. We also do financial assistance.
And to get some more information on how you can help out, head to our website, WSPA.com.
Still ahead on 7 News, a special celebration today honoring an upstate veteran for his acts of service to the country.
And before we head off to break, it has been a tough year for our high school seniors. So 7 News wants to help congratulate the class of 2020. You can send us a picture of your graduating senior. Just head to WSPA.com. You'll see this about halfway down the homepage. They'll be included in a class of 2020 photo gallery.
A special birthday celebration held today to honor and celebrate a Vietnam veteran who just turned 77 years old. James Wade Hall is at Providence Care Hospice, celebrated today for his 14 years of service in the Army and Special Forces. Family, dozens of military personnel came to make sure he knew he was loved.
I'm honored to be part of the community coming out to honor him. It's because of the service that he gave to us that we all get to choose to do what we want to do. And it's our honor and our privilege to be at this point in his life with him and serve him.
Along with the birthday celebration, James got a letter from Congress and a plaque for his exemplary service and valor. We have time to review the biggest developments of the day on the coronavirus.
That's right. Businesses across South Carolina are working to reopen, mandating safety procedures like wearing face masks. An experimental drug, remdesivir, is proving effective in fighting the virus in clinical trials. And the CDC is issuing some new social distancing guidance for pets. These stories and a lot more right now on WSPA.com.
While you're online in about 3.5 minutes, join 7 News anchor Julie Edwards over on the Facebook page. She'll just be doing a Facebook Live trying to touch base with you, talk about your concerns during the coronavirus or really anything you'd like to talk to Julie Edwards about. That's at 8 o'clock on the WSPA Facebook page.